Yo, what's good, everybody? And today we're going to be reacting to my key takeaways from the Senior Bowl, which just finished up here. I'm filming it right after, just so everything's fresh in my mind. Senior Bowl was interesting. It confirmed a lot of things for me, and it definitely shaped my perception in a much clearer mind frame to go into the combine with. So let's get right into it. What we saw is a couple main things. So the first one being running back play. Running back play, we saw, in my opinion, a lot of capable receiving back type running backs. We didn't see a huge running display from very many people. Ollie Gordon had a solid day, and he even showed some like kind of versatility. He had a double pass at the beginning to Jaden Higgins for the touchdown. Speaking of double passes, we had another one that came later in the fourth quarter. RJ Harvey. And he apparently used to play quarterback, hence that he threw a double pass off the original pass from Seth Hennigan. He's another one of these guys that I'm seeing that he could also be a really good receiving back. And speaking of which, another guy that stood out to me as a receiving back potentially in the NFL, Brashard Smith. And he's a guy that is pretty crafty the way he tries to fight for extra yards. And if he doesn't end up getting drafted, just because that is the strength of this RB class, of this running back class in currently in this year, and how deep it is. If he doesn't end up getting drafted, I do believe he will end up on an NFL roster for special teams purposes, because Brashard Smith is a hell of a return man. Like I said, he's pretty crafty the way he's able to shift around different guys and make them miss tackles. So definitely like him as at least a return man in the league. But specifically, Jarquez Hunter, could also see him being a great pass catching back in the league. Really has a nice burst off the catch and gets creative to get extra yards as well. So those are some of the running backs that stood out to me. One that's a bit of a, kind of if for me is Bashal Tootin. He confirmed a bit of what I thought. He's going to be a polarizing prospect for a lot of people because he's about 5'11", 208, which is, it's not that small. It's small, but it's not that small, right? The problem that I have with him is that sometimes he plays small, and especially when it's more of a direct handoff. So as a receiving back, I could see him being very active because he thrives off of when you get him out into open space. He can definitely make things happen on that end. So that's just me. That's what I saw from the Senior Bowl as far as the running backs go. It was kind of underwhelming for me as far as the quarterback play, because when both sides score, less than 3 touchdowns from either side, and 2 of those touchdowns, one from each side, coming from double passes off from halfbacks. You can kind of tell why I would be underwhelmed by the quarterback play. So let's talk about the good first, though. Riley Leonard was pretty solid. At the end of the day, I kind of don't love him as a high upside prospect. But wow, he's definitely very accurate, and he's the type of guy. He was about 6 for 7, I believe, on 58 yards in the time that he played, and in the time that he did play, he just proved, and he did this in the national championship too. He's got poise. He doesn't get affected that much. He's very comfortable in the pocket, is what I mean. And he's the type of guy that can just go out there and make a throw, and there's a place for those types of guys in the NFL. The other guy that I want to point out as someone who's a big riser, especially over the course of the past few weeks, and I don't want to fully buy into the hype yet, and I'll tell you why, but Jackson Dart. And he's just a real playmaker, man. Like, he has an excellent deep ball, showing off that arm talent. He had a rushing touchdown even where he broke a couple tackles and he got shifty with it to extend it for the score. There were a few people in the vicinity ready to make that open field tackle, close, within 5 yards of the end zone, and he was able to, kind of just not even power his way through, but kind of just like make them miss a little bit and get into the end zone for a score. He's just the type of guy that can extend plays because he's more mobile than a lot of these prospects that are in the class, and he has excellent arm talent. It wasn't all good though, so I think a lot of the draft nerds should slow down a little bit, because at times he showed bad pocket awareness, which resulted in some sacks. So it's not all good stuff from my end that I was seeing. Um, Other than that, let me think. Seth Hennigan also stood out definitely, because he's a guy. He comes from Memphis G5 program, where they had a bit of an up and down season, having been ranked at one point, trailing off near the end. I think a lot of people expected them to make the American Conference Championship. Um, and he's the type of QB though that will show you some fight. He led a 2-minute drill to end the game off with a game-winning touchdown as the clock expired. But to me, in my eyes, he's not super exceptional. He has a good arm. I mean, he's a quarterback, so he should, but he has a good arm compared to the rest of the prospects. And there's something to be said about showing out on that stage for sure, because you're putting yourself above other prospects that might be one of those late round projections. At quarterback, when they are hurting their own stocks and you are showing up, if you just show up to work on that day and you do your thing to a certain extent, you're going to put yourself above some of those later round projected guys. One guy who did not step up to the plate, unfortunately, Jalen Milroe. Not a good showing. This is problematic, especially because following quite a bad bowl game that he had versus Michigan, because Jackson Dart at this point in time, in my eyes, Jackson Dart has now surpassed Jalen Milroe as the quarterback 3 in this class. Milroe, he wasn't producing points. He was taking sacks, even when he would try to get mobile as well. So that's not a good thing to see when your mobility and your athleticism is what you're kind of promoting yourself as with your high upside. He was also definitely panicking on the throwing end after a while, like of he wasn't having the best drives. He would start panicking and doing fast reads, just to get the ball out, so he didn't get pressured, basically. And that's not always the best thing, because in this situation, when he was taking the read that he sees right away, open check down, but it didn't. There were other people in the vicinity. The play didn't develop, so basically it was hard for the running back to get extra yards, because it led to a quick pursuit from the defender or any defenders in that area. So this is not good for Jalen Milroe. In my opinion, he needs to show up to the combine and have a really, 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 really great day at the combine, because that is going to be very important for him to make sure that he retains a quarterback 3 position in this class, or even get it back, rather, because in my opinion, he was quarterback 3 before the past couple weeks, and now it is Jackson Dart after I've seen what happened today. So I want to see Milroe succeed for sure, because he's hurting his draft stock right now. He could potentially fall third round. God forbid he falls to the 4th round, but right now, in my eyes, he's a 3rd round or late 2nd round quarterback. I guess with having seen the fact that the halfback double pass, or the double pass from the halfback, resulted in touchdowns on both ends, I wouldn't say that the DB play was exceptional today. Kind of took their eye off of it and realized it was a trick play later on, and ended up giving up touchdowns on those ends. However, one of the few DBs that stood out to me, Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State, he's a willing tackler and he's good in pursuit. He plays with a great energy. He's a bit short on the, I guess for my taste, on the boundary. I think he's 5'10", 5'11", which, we've seen guys be successful at those heights on the boundary corner, as boundary corners, but he brings the energy that it takes to be successful in that mold. There's a place for guys that play with his type of physicality always in the NFL, so I think he could find his way onto a roster, and it's definitely important for him to be showing out at these types of events, because the DB class, there's little separation amongst all the depth that's in it. Receiving, guys that stood out to me on as receivers, Arian Smith was one of them. He's a boomer bust downfield threat. He's a classic, kind of wideout that you can take a shot down, and he is going to potentially going to win with his body control. He has great body control, but he's inconsistent with his catching, as we've seen throughout the year. He's had some drops. That pivotal drops. He has a good release though, and his technique off the line is great. So he's a guy that you could look out for, because I think a lot of this wide receiver class are slot producers, as I'd like to call them. So I think downfield threats are going to be fewer and far between. So I think it's important to look out for a guy like him who can be a good downfield threat in the league potentially. Potentially, you got to get the catching right at the end of the day, and you don't want to see a quarterback, or sorry, not quarterback. You don't want to see a receiver who will drop easy passes sometimes. Another guy, Jack Besh, absolute stud. He is definitely going to make an NFL team very happy one day. He's just a great receiver. He can make big catches, run good routes, be a great pass catcher, just reliable pass catcher, and be your go-to option at times when necessary. For example, in the 2-minute drill, he was the guy that caught the last play. Shallow end of the end zone, similar to a Mark Andrews catch that somebody had dropped. Obviously, Jack Besh is a receiver and can't really be compared there, but similar type of catch, falling in the shallow end of the end zone. Pretty direct ball. Catches it, makes that big catch to win the game for them. Of course, it was a exhibition. It was a scrimmage at the end of the day, but he's the type of guy who is going to make big plays in the league. Absolutely. He has all of the intangibles, and he's got a great skill set. And then the last thing that this game confirmed from the Senior Bowl is that pass rush is so supreme in this draft. I haven't seen a pass rush draft like this in a long time. You even saw guys who are lower on the boards that, there's some really great top-end talent as far as pass rush goes on the edge. You've even saw guys who are lower on the boards, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys, show out today. Guys like Jaw Joyner out of Minnesota. He was getting into the backfield a couple times. He sacked Milroe once or twice. Pass rush, looking great for this draft. Someone to look out for in the later rounds. Femi Oladejo as well. He was disruptive on so many plays as well. Definitely going to be a riser in this draft out of UCLA. And you should definitely keep your eye out on him. Any other guys that I forgot to mention? Just looking at my notes here. I was taking notes during the game, type of thing. No. It confirmed a lot of things for us besides the specifics of the players. Again, quarterbacks, the later round quarterbacks, that a lot of them have been hurting their stocks. And even a guy like Milroe did, who was considered QB3 at one point. Jackson Dart is rising. And quarterback play, other than Dart, other than Riley Leonard and Seth Hennigan at the end, nothing to write home about. Not too exciting. I don't want to feed into the narrative that this is a bad quarterback class, but it's majority an extremely average quarterback class in my eyes. And then other than that, pass rush is great. And then we're seeing a lot of guys who can become potentially good or capable RB2s or RB3s. Yeah. Other than that, let me know what you thought in the comments of the game. Who stuck out to you that I might have missed. And then, let me know if you guys are excited for the Combine. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and follow me on all socials down in the description below. All right, peace.